The clamp canon. So when we talk about canon, we're typically referring to when there's a bunch of different works all revolving on the same kind of central storyline, but a lot of them have to fit into the current creator's vision for the story, whereas others may end up contradicting and so they can't be considered part of the canon. They can't take place in the official narrative. For example, say one character dies in one story, but in another story written about another character, the character lives. Well, one of them is going to be picked in order to be part of the main narrative, and the other one's just going to be, as in Star Wars, relegated to legends. So, in the case of Clamp, we're going to take a look at pretty much all of their works and see what can be put into their canon, especially given the presence of the Tsubasa multiverse now, and what is still just essentially legends, non-canon, concept art, things that contradict, etc. So after much thought on this, I have come down to three kind of concepts for the canon. First, we have the official canon, and this requires the following criteria. First, the work cannot contradict other canon works, excluding small continuity errors. There are some continuity errors throughout, as are the case in pretty much many different types of works. In case of Clamp, at one point, say, Tsubasa and Holic, a conversation between the Tsubasa group and Yuko occurs, and she references something going on in Holic, but it's like a week apart from when it should have taken place, so small continuity errors are going to be allowed here. But not things such as if Yuko is dead in all dimensions, as Fei Wong says in Tsubasa, well, then there can't be another Yuko, so that would immediately exclude things like the Holic anime. The second criteria is that works must be originally created by Clamp. This seems like a no-brainer. If it's Clamp's works, then we're only talking about what they made, not, say, any random other kind of creation, like Star Wars, for instance. Criteria 2A is an alternative in that it's or Clamp must approve of the work being within their canon universes. We do see this sometimes, such as in the case of Clamp's co-paranormal investigators. Criteria 2B is works created by Clamp are defined as created by the official group, not independent members, whether current or former. Term created is utilized instead of written, as Okawa appears to almost always write the story, while the remainder handle the art, etc. But combination may have been written by Lisa, and cluster may have been written by Tamayo. So essentially, I didn't want to say written. We have other people writing, and sometimes if I just said written, then works that these artists created before and after could also be included as part of the canon, but we're not looking at those, we're looking at what the group as a whole has created. And criteria 2C is that a work cannot majorly contain copyrighted materials unless given express permission. My earlier poll, when I was showing this, I had not put majorly in. I'm adding that in because there are some small things like copyrighted logos or little candies or other kind of things going on occasionally, which is a common thing in many works, so that's not going to decanonize the whole thing. We're talking about things like where they use an entire character design throughout, such as in Dojin. And criteria 3 is that a work must be in an officially published, not Dojin book, be an official anime release excluding music videos, or be an official drama CD release, and these drama CD stories might exist in alternate dimensions. Sometimes drama CDs may exist in the current dimension. It's all debatable, and I'll briefly cover that later. Now, the second option besides official canon is honorary canon, which are technically non-canon since it doesn't meet the above definition, but they essentially don't contradict other works, so they could still be considered canon. These are works that meet the first two official canon criteria, but don't fall into the third. So, for example, there's a lot of magazine works that were likely intended to be canon, but they never were either long enough or never got enough notoriety to be put into an actual book form. So they're canon in heart. And finally, there's the non-canon, which are works that don't even meet the first two criteria. So we'll see plenty of those, but it's mostly regarding around contradictions. So regarding the canon works, first off, we will be looking at the undisputed canon print media. These ones we've all known are canon basically from the start. They are everywhere, and people talk about them, people read them. And so that's RG Vader, 20 Mass, Tokyo Babylon, Decalion, Clamp School Defenders, Clamp School Detectives, Shirahime Shio's Tales, X, Legend of Shinyan, Magic Knight Wraith, Mika-chan in Wonderland, Wish, Cardcaptor Sakura, Clover, Angelic Leia, Suki Like Story, Legal Drug, Chobits, Holic, Suwasa Reservoir Chronicle, Soul and Lore, The Adventures of Mokuna Maruki, Kobato, Gate 7, and I'm also mentioning here, for added specificity, the World of the Untold Story, number 4 and 5. This World of the Untold Story is kind of an omake, an extra thing in Tsubasa. Not all of them initially seem canon, but these two in particular do take place, as it's clear that they're canon events going on the sides. Next up are the disputed but canon print media. So these ones do fit our canon definition, but some people could still debate them as to their inclusion. But it's more so not about the definition here, but it's more what they're debated more so on just other kind of grounds. So, for example, first off, we have Combination Volumes 1 and 2. These ones were created by Clamp as a whole, while some of the other works were still being released alongside it, such as 20 Mass, RG Vader, Clamp School Detectives. So hence some combination characters show up in those works. These would include like Suzuku and Moriyama. Initially, the story was meant to take place alongside the Clamp School trilogy, but when Lisa Say left the group, she took ownership of all her characters, and since the story was in large part her idea, she took the rights to that as well and finished the story herself. So all this to say, the first 2 volumes are canon to Clamp's multiverse, but since they are copyright protected, they cannot be referenced or reutilized again. And the same can be said for Cluster. Volumes 1 and 2 were created by Clamp as a whole, but Tamayo Akiyama took her stories and characters with her when she left. Cluster occurs far in space, I think, so it is its own isolated story. But regardless, it does fit our canon definition, but cannot be used again for copyright reasons. The same can be said for D-Raid. Tamayo took ownership of this work and reprinted it with some minor changes in the credits and some art pages, but it was created by Clamp as a whole. Okawa even wrote a good portion of the plot, and the story briefly occurs at Clamp School, so it is canon, but copyright blocked. So as you can see, this is where the dispute comes in. It's like, if they're copyright blocked, why can we consider them canon? Well, they were originally meant to be. So next up is Koi. This is a collaboration book between Clamp and Takeshi Okazaki. Clamp handled much of the work, including the story, while the characters were designed by Takeshi. Hence, even though it fits our canon definition, the characters were likely never reused for copyright purposes. The one I love, I had asked my fans about, and initially you were split 50-50 on this one, but it does fit our canon definition, and since then, I've learned that 2 characters reappear in Wish, as Wish briefly continues their story, or at least seems to continue the story after their marriage. So, because of that, I'm pretty much 100% backing this as canon, rather than some random honorary canon anthology. Next we have Dream Hunter, Yumegari. And while it initially would fall under the honorary canon status, since it started as a light novel unfinished and existing only in a magazine release, since then, it did reappear in Holic as a movie following the exact script. I purposely left the canon definition a little oddly worded so that we can include Dream Hunter, because it is a work in an officially published book, in this case Holic. It's just existing as a subdimension. Next is Princess Mokuna in the Clamp Kingdom. It does fit the canon definition, even if it reads more like a non-canon parody work. Then we have Clamp School Paranormal Investigators, which was written by Tomoyuki Matsumoto, while Clamp handled the art. While its stories and multiverse explanation may conflict with the established canon of the Clamp School and or Tokyo Babylon/X dimensions, it can be placed in its own dimension if it doesn't fit either of these. In any case, given the collaborative origin of the work, it is safe to say Clamp fully endorses it in their multiverse. Kakyo's Earth Conquest Diary follows the daily life of Clamp's cat Kakyo and later her new housemate Kogane. As an official book release, it fits our canon definition. This work also is the origin for the crossover characters of the cats seen in Tsubasa's Oto country. Holic, another Holic Landart Ring Aerosol, was written by Nishiyoshi Isin, while Clamp designed 4 bits of art for the book. I would initially declare it as non-canon, but chapters 1 and 2 do not contradict the canon, and if nothing else, the first chapter was loved so much that it was actually added into the anime. Hence, I think Clamp backs this work enough to include it, or at least the first 2 chapters, but I'll cover chapter 3 later. Then finally, we have Tsubasa's World of the Untold Story, chapters 1 through 3 and 6 through 8. I was initially going to declare these non-canon, but there is a gap between Syaoran and Piffle World, and another gap between Piffle and Lecourt, for which these stories could actually occur in. None of them are technically contradictory overall for the plot, so I now do actually consider them canon. Finally, we have the canon digital media. These would include RG Vader, Tokyo Babylon, the live-action Tokyo Babylon 1999 movie, Magic Knight Rayearth, the Rayearth OVAs, which are their own continuity, Miki-chan in Wonderland, Clamp School Detectives, X the movie, its separate continuity, X the series, Angelic Layer, Chobits, and the Blood Sea anime, including Blood Sea The Last Arc. And as well, any drama CDs under the Clamp label that don't contradict canon. I will say there's a lot of drama CDs. My knowledge of Japanese is very limited, so trying to find all these drama CDs, much less listen through them to try and tell if they contradict or not, is far beyond what I could do. So I'm just going to loosely mention the drama CDs here. So moving on to the honorary canon works. Again, these ones are works that never got official releases but were likely intended to be canon, or it could be considered canon in the background or in their own separate dimensions. So first is Shining Star, a doujin released back in 1987 and helped form the foundation for Clamp School narratives. Since this is vague enough, it may even fit into the Clamp School dimension. Next are Clamp Books 6 and 14. So the Clamp Books series was a big series of doujins, 22 books long. Most of the doujins are parody works of other things, but some of them were origins for what are now canon Clamp narratives. So 6 and 14 served as the concept foundation for RG Vader, hence they can't be considered canon to that dimension, but might be considered alternate takes in their own dimensions. Next is the Shoten series, consisting of 6 books and a 7th separate volume dimension. These books form the foundation for the Clamp School dimension. Their stories do contradict canon, but there is no reason that they can't occur in their own universe. These books do run close to breaking our copyright rule, though, as Lecourt designed 2 characters based on the Dominion series. I believe, is the predecessors for the Imoneyama Shopping District Association on the Puma sisters. But they are distinct enough that they could work, but I could see why she never reused them for that purpose. So that is just another one of many, many reasons that we likely won't see Shoten ever reprinted officially. Now, the rest of these ones are magazine-exclusive releases, hence the primary reason they cannot be official canon. Angel Bodyguard nonetheless does receive a crossover character in the Clamp School dimension, so it may occur in the background. Like Star's Army Wars served as the origin for many characters, for example Suo, Nagisa, and Yuto, but the story does conflict with the Clamp School canon, or at least so I've heard, as Nagisa wants to kill Suo in the story, but the two fall in love in canon. But again, there's no reason it couldn't occur in an alternate dimension. Love Makes the World Go Around, originally known as Koi wa Tenka no Mawarimono, could be considered to occur in the background of the Clamp School dimension, as the character Masayoshi, who is in canon, is more prominent in this story. Miracle U similarly may occur in the background of Clamp School, as it has a couple of crossover characters in canon. Left Hand, aka Hidarite, is its own story that has no relationship to any other work, but does fit under an honorary canon label. And finally, Morikuri does reference Chitose's apartments, but it's unclear what universe, be it its own, Chobits, Holic, etc., that it might occur in. The pig in the stories is also referenced, though, slightly in Holic, though it's not the same pig. And then finally, we have the non-canon works. Starting with the print media, we have Clamp books 1 through 5, 7 through 8, as well as 10, 12, 15, 18, 20, and 22. So all of these ones are the Dojin parroting official copyrighted works, so they can't be considered canon at all for Clamp's works. Since Combination was finished by Lisa Say and not Clamp, volumes 3 through 6 follow that continuity instead, and so they are also non-canon. The same is true for Tamayo's Cluster, volumes 0 and 3 through 6. Mizuto no Shi Kyodai Shohyuden Gaiden is a magazine exclusive and written by Yoshiki Tanaka. Meanwhile, Clamp handled the art. Hence, their role is more like a guest artist than allowing the story to be part of their canon. Rex, a dinosaur story, is similar, as Clamp only drew the art for this book, while the story was Masanori Hata's. Washizu is a similar magazine case, as Clamp were essentially guest artists, while the story later continued without them. And now we finally have another Holic Chapter 3. I consider this non-canon as it appears to conflict the canon. It's mostly small things, such as Watanuki always seeing a haze of spirits overhead rather than ever seeing the blue sky, or the shop disappearing and being replaced with essentially a dollar store rather than grassland. The bigger issue is the possibility of the character Basada's eye-world theory, and the idea that if Watanuki trained himself, he could force people and spirits to stay away from him by essentially pure willpower. There is more to it than this, of course, and some of these things might have ways to explain them otherwise, but for now, I would exclude it from canon. It's just a little too contradictory for my tastes. Then we have Horitsuba Private Academy. This is a parody work reusing essential characters, so it is obviously non-canon and just meant for fun. Next is the Bloodsea manga and Demonic Moonlight prequel manga series. Clamp had nothing to do with these, and they as such contain contradictory lines and stories to Clamp's visions seen in the anime. Like, they changed the year that it's in, they cut a line of Watanuki. They really changed a lot of things, because these are instead to follow the collaborator Fujisaku's vision for the story, and he continues these in his live-action installments. Next are the non-canon digital media. The first several contradict the singularity of characters like Chloe Reed and Yukio Ichihara. That is to say, the point of Tsubasa and Holic in large part is there never appeared any other dimensional versions of these characters, so canon can't have more. Once again, that calls back to when Fei Wong said the witch doesn't exist in any dimension, in any form. So, because of that, you can't have another version of Yuko live action or anime. It doesn't work. Hence, the anime and live action depictions of Cardcaptor, Holic, and Tsubasa are non-canon. That said, though, the Holic Ro Arayume OVA might be considered canon. There's nothing in it that contradicts the main narrative, so it might be able to be slipped in to the same universe. For example, the Tokyo Babylon live-action movie is set to be canon in the original manga dimension. So, similarly, the Ro Arayume OVA might be canon. There's no contradictions, but there's also nothing necessarily implying that it is canon. Now, as well, next is Kobato. The Kobato anime references the Holic anime events, primarily the Holic movie anime events, and so because of this as well, it is non-canon. The Bloodsea live-action stories, again, follow Fujisaku's vision for the story. Clamp had nothing to do with them, so that excludes all of those. Finally, if there are any drama CDs that contradict canon, obviously they're non-canon. But again, drama CDs, I can't go through those all to find them. The best I could say is like the drama CD for Holic K, I think could be considered canon. It does some nice callbacks to the Milk no Motoki series. But again, you'd have to go case by case. Now, of note to the side, the wiki lists several anime, etc. that Clamp has done art/character designs for. All these other stories are, of course, non-canon to Clamp's multiverse, as they didn't create the work, just many visual designs, and so this includes many things like Code Geass, etc. Lastly, I want to mention 3 works that are mentioned, but I cannot find more information on. Such in the first work, Shiawase ni Naritai, yields the song from Clover, so if this is that, but just earlier, then it is in fact canon, because it was used in Clover. Otherwise, it might be an entirely different work, and so only be honorary canon or even non-canon. I don't know enough about the work to tell you. The other 2 works, Tenku Senku Shirato Original Memory Dreamer and Anohi o Shiru Mono wa Saiwai Dearu, are only mentioned to exist, so I cannot say if they are honorary canon or non-canon as well. So, with that in mind, these are all of the canon works and all of the non-canon and honorary canon works. Essentially, if you want to go through for your Clamp collection, the canon works are the primary things that you'd want to be able to read everything on. But the honorary canon works are great reads, and I would highly recommend collecting those too. The non-canon works are still very good reads here and there. They're of course, the animes as well are great to watch. But if you're just strictly looking for a canon listing, here you finally go. Feel free to make out some other points or so, as to if you think some of these other works should be considered part of the canon, if you think some of the canon ones should be taken out. And this is just a fan estimate, but it is the closest I think we can get to finally narrowing down what really is part of the canon and what's not. So, thank you all for listening, and I hope this helps out in your Clamp journey.